I'm Tania Gustafson, award-winning nutritionist, behavior specialist, and certified mental wellness coach on a mission to help midlife women move from barely surviving to thriving. You have been lied to. Weight gain, mood swings, hot flashes, brain fog, despite what the world and even your doctor may have told you, do not have to be your story. You are not broken. You've just never been shown how to fuel your body in a way that creates hormonal balance. Fit Woman Podcast is where we expose the lies and share all things to help women take back control of their health, hormones, weight, and mental wellness and thrive through midlife. I'm so glad you're here. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Fit Woman Podcast, where we are exploring all things to help women fuel their bodies, ignite their metabolism and their minds to thrive through midlife. I am Tania Gustafson, and today I am super excited to have a U.S. Army veteran and author of the brand new children's book series called A Child's Journey Through Grief. So author Tashay Mason is here with me today. Tashay is a certified nutrition and lifestyle coach. She holds 2 master's degrees in management and social work, and she has a doctorate in organizational leadership. So this gal knows what she's talking about. Welcome, Tashay. Thanks for taking the time to be here today.
Well, thank you, Tanya. Thank you so much for having me.
You're so welcome. And so this is such a unique topic. And I don't think it has to be a unique topic. I mean, so we're talking about, children who have dealt with grief because they've lost a loved one, whether it's a parent, maybe grandparent, something. But parents are, just that closest to the child. And so just tell us a little bit about your niche and your demographic there, like where your journey began about writing this book, this series.
Absolutely. So it is children's fictions book, and it's for children from the ages of 8 to 12, but any child that's dealing with it or child at heart. But my journey began when I was 9 years old, and my mom had to tell me that my dad died. And interestingly enough, it happened December 12th, 1986, which is this Friday is the anniversary of that. So I remember as a kid when she had to sit me down on the couch and tell me, and this was after school, I felt like my whole world just fell apart, and it took a lot to really try to process my feelings. And it even as a kid, I fully didn't get it. I was angry at times. I was confused at times. And luckily, my mom was there to help me with the process. However, I was one of those kids that would always internalize things. I didn't want to talk about my feelings. If I wasn't happy or extremely mad, I didn't want to talk about anything else. And it was to the point where I had to have my mom there to help me. And even though she was there, I was hoping that this was all one big joke. I was hoping that maybe one day my dad would pop up and say, surprise, it was a really bad joke. And I would have these different imaginations that would go through my head about where he could possibly be, but not dead. And then I was angry. I was angry a lot of years because I would see other kids with their dads. And I'm like, well, what happened to me? Why is it that my dad was taken away? I had questions like, did I not say I love you enough? Was I a bad kid? All these things that no one else said to me, but it was internal. I internalized it, and I kept thinking it was my fault. And then I had the concern of if something was going to happen to my mom or my sisters, because I had another sister with my dad and my stepmom and a stepsister. So I worried about them. So it was always, am I going to lose someone else?
That must be incredibly stressful as a child.
Yeah. And I like to stay busy. So that was my thing. If I stayed busy, I didn't have to think about it. But in those moments where it was quiet and there was nothing going on, those thoughts would seep into my mind. But I give credit to my mom who actually, had me participate in different things to kind of help try to bring some type of balance. But at the same time, I was still going through the grief as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it sounds like she was a good support system for you. So that's amazing because I'm sure it was really difficult for her too. When you're grieving and then helping someone else to get through their grief as well too. It's like there's a tug of war going on. And Yeah.
Exactly. And see, even though my mom and dad weren't together, they were still great friends. And
Ah.
so we didn't really talk about her grief until after I wrote the first book and I got to get
Oh.
insight into what it was for her to sit her child down and tell her that her dad is no longer here. So her having, having being friends with him even after they were no longer together
Mhm.
and to get the news. So now she has to try to process her grief and then now she's got to wait till her daughter gets home from school to give her this bad news.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So then fast forwarding, so what prompted you to write this book? Was it like just a realization, or were you still struggling as an adult, or like
Oh
what?
yeah, I was definitely struggling as an adult. It took me to actually go to counseling as an adult to
Oh,
get to a point of processing my emotions because I'm one of those people that, hey, if I don't have to think about it, I don't want to think about it. I'm fine. Let me keep it moving. Which
yeah, we
also
just
helped
like
me
to
in
push the
the
bad things away, right? We don't
exactly
want to like, don't let them come here. I'm busy. I'll deal with
right.
you later. And pretty soon it's 20 years later or something.
Yeah, and later never comes until you
Mm,
finally get to a point where, and this is what I like to tell people, even though you may try to suppress it, it will come out in other ways. So the way I dealt with people, the way I did certain things, it would seep out. And it finally, I decided, you know what, I need to go to therapy. And that was about 6, 7 years ago when I went.
okay, so
And when
fairly recently then.
exactly. Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
It was finally, it was just that time that I need to go ahead and handle it. And so going through therapy, processing my emotions about it, and then finally getting to a point of being okay. Not just good because I still miss my dad and,
Yeah.
those times come up, but at a point of being, you know what? It's okay. I'm going to feel this way. I need to sit in it. I need to deal with it. But it's okay that I at times get angry and get confused as to why he had to go so early. So then I truly believe God placed it on my heart, was like, okay, now you're ready to write a children's book. And I was like, oh, yes, I want to write a children's book. Never wanted to write a children's book ever. Never came across my mind. And then I was like, oh my goodness, what am I going to write about? And then grief.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, I don't want to write about grief. That's that. I don't want to do that. And I sat on it for a year, and that
Mm.
nagging thought just kept on and kept on to where you need to write this. You need to write a children's book to help others as they're dealing with this. Because I had already volunteered at a grief support center for children when I was
Okay.
living in Fort Worth for a couple of years. So, and my age group was between the ages of 5 and 8.
Okay.
So helping them and didn't realize at the same time I was dealing with, with the grief as well.
So it was
Kept
helping
coming
you
back
because
up.
you were helping them.
Exactly. But
I think
yeah.
that is something that, I think a lot of people that have gone through trauma, when they help others,
Hmm.
it really starts to it's very therapeutic.
Yes. But I
Yeah.
didn't realize it was helping me until later.
Mm.
So it was
Okay.
like, I'm helping these kids. And even though I would have flashbacks to the day my mom told me, just dealing with all of that, it finally got me to a point of wanting to go to therapy. So when I decided to finally give in and start writing the book, I was like, I've never written a children's book before. I don't know how this process works. What is the format? So my mom used to always teach my sister, if you want to know something, go look it up, research. So I began to research, but I knew I wanted to come from a place, it's coming from authenticity. I
Mm.
had to tap back into that 9-year-old self, I was very afraid to do, but I
Okay.
knew I had to do it. And I wanted to go into a different direction to where um, it's coming from the 9-year-old's point of view.
Right.
I'm not just telling a story. I'm actually sharing the 9-year-old side of me and how she was feeling at that time.
Yeah. So Tashay, at 9 years old, how you were feeling when your mom told you this news, right? And then
Exactly,
you didn't just
exactly.
write one book, you wrote three books. You got a
Yeah,
whole series because
well,
there's
yeah,
those seasons and stages. I'm guessing that once you did the first one, you're like, oh, okay, but I'm not done yet. Is that sort of
that's
okay?
exactly what
That
happened.
was the impression I got when I read it. I'm like, okay, and then I saw the next title and I'm like, oh yeah, she just not done yet, this girl.
Yeah.
right?
And well, so here's the interesting thing. So I thought it was going to be a one and done, right? I
Okay.
was like one and done. I write the book and then after I wrote it and after I published it, the thought was like, well, okay. So what happens to the family after the funeral?
Exactly.
Because typically, the funeral happens, you have people that say, "Oh, well, if you need anything, call on me," and this and offer our condolences. But then that dwindles away
Yep.
and the family has to establish a new norm. So they're trying to figure out what's going on. The mom, she has to figure out, okay, we got bills to pay, we got to take life still goes on, but now I have to figure out how is this going to work without him being here. And now the little girl is trying to figure out, okay, daddy was here all this time, taking me to school, doing all these different things. Now he's no longer here. How can, what do I do? So after that, it was like, okay, so we got to figure out what's going on with this family afterwards.
Yeah.
So then I started tapping into what happened to me and my
Yeah.
family after the funeral. What did we do? We were living in Arkansas at the time and moved back down to Texas. All these different things that happened and what was going on with dealing with the emotional aspect of it. And so that's when it's okay to be happy and then let's celebrate came because I wanted to be able to show those different stages that this family was going through and how this little
Yeah.
girl was trying to process it at such a young age.
Well, and I think that's such an important message because, I think regardless of your age, my mom passed away in 2020. And so that was the person closest to me that has ever passed away, right? That I've had to deal with. And of course, I was an adult, but there's still that, it's okay that you have to remind yourself it's okay to be happy,
Hmm.
right? Because
Yeah,
and would that person want me to be sad and wallowing and, not living my best life? Absolutely not, because they loved you, right? And so there's that
exactly.
that weird that weird dichotomy, that weird balance of, okay, well, I'm really upset and I'm sad and I miss this person, but they would want me to be happy. It's like, oh, right? And how
And
can
then
I
it's
do
like, do
that?
I want to? And it's
Do
like,
I,
do I want to
right?
be happy? Because,
Hmm.
it feels, because I had to think back, there were times when I laughed and I was like, should I be laughing?
Mm,
Because, you have some people that, oh, well, they don't seem like they're grieving. They're not, because grief doesn't come in one package.
no.
And I like to say this all the time, grief comes in waves and it comes in different ways. And so, there may be a moment that you're laughing, having a good time, and then the next moment you're crying because you just thought about that person being there. You may be watching TV, you may be listening to a song on the radio, you may be reading a book, you may be driving down the road and you see something and it takes you right back to day one. And so with the adults that I work with, because I'm an online grief facilitator, a
Right.
groups of facilitator, I tell them, that old saying, take it day by day. I don't even use that saying anymore. I say, take it moment by moment
Mm,
because there's 24 hours in a day.
yeah.
That's a lot of time to sit there and think about that person that's no longer there. And I would tell them, if all you can do is get out of bed, that's a win.
Yep.
That's when you were able to get out of bed. If you have some things you need to do, write things down. So all these different things. And so looking at it from an adult's perspective of losing your parent. Now let's go backwards and think about it as you're that little girl and you lost your mom and you don't understand why. You hear that people have died. You probably known some people that died and everything, but now it's come home to where
Yeah.
this person is no longer there.
Yeah. It's really upfront and personal. Yeah. And right in
Exactly.
your face. Right. So
Yeah.
what advice would you give to parents who are struggling, who are like your mom in that position, like, because it sounds like your mom, I'm sure she had her struggles, but it seemed like she was really present for you. But I'm sure there's a lot of parents out there who are just really struggling to keep their act together so they can like make breakfast in the morning to get their child to school, like it's
Hmm.
just like it's all I can do this. So what would you suggest to parents? What advice would you give them if they're struggling?
So I would definitely suggest if there's one in the area to find a grief support group.
Okay.
not only for themselves, but also for children. Like the one that I volunteered with, the parent or the caregiver couldn't just drop off the child. They had to sit in the session too. So it was separate sessions because it was a sessions for adults, but
Oh,
also for the children as well. So the children went to their sessions where they were with the kids,
right.
but that caregiver ended up being in with the other adults so they can process what they were going through. So I strongly suggest if there's a grief support center in the area, definitely do that. Also counseling, grief counseling, because as the parent, as the adult, you got to work through processing your grief too.
Yeah.
And there are going to be times that you're going to be so emotional, but you're also dealing with this child's emotion. And I always say there is no bad emotions. Okay.
Yeah.
You may feel everything at once and it's going to hit you at different times. But also when it comes to helping the child,
Mhm.
there is no right time to start the conversation. I know we like to say, well, this is not the right time to do it. There never will be. There will never ever be the right time to discuss this. It's going to hurt. It's going to be uncomfortable, but it's important to start the conversation with that child and make it, of course, age appropriate. And also look at it from the perspective of that child. You don't have to go into a full conversation about it. That child may only have a couple of questions and that might be it. So I wouldn't go any further than what that child is trying to go.
So let
Um,
them lead the conversation,
let them lead the
basically.
conversation.
Okay.
And then I would also do a pulse check. They may everything may seem fine. And just because it seems fine doesn't mean that it is. Because some kids may want to, I don't want that parent to worry about me. They're already feeling sad. I don't want to make them feel any sadder. Do a pulse check. Hey, how are things going? Because sometimes, and what I've learned, even going back to looking at my experience, sometimes you may get that you or that child may be upset about something, and it's not necessarily that thing that they're upset about.
Right.
It may be the fact that they're missing that parent, and then whatever it was that may be slightly agitating became even more aggravating.
Just kind of
Um,
like lit the fuse,
yeah, it was
and that was
like it
like the
was already
catalyst.
there.
Yeah, yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. So definitely questions like, hey, even just how was your day going? Well, I was frustrated with the teacher today. Well, tell me what was going on with the teacher.
Right.
And you may find out it wasn't really the teacher. It may
No.
be just the fact that they were in that moment. And the teacher just happened, like you said, the catalyst to just set everything off.
Yeah.
And then also have some activities. It doesn't have to be anything big. My mom, we used to play Monopoly. We played the game of life. We did that before my dad died, but we did those different things. And then as I got a little bit older, actually, I would say that next year, my mom was dating a gentleman who was an engineer and he had a ranch. So I learned how to ride horses,
Nice.
and I was in a couple of rodeos where I barrel raced, and everything, and it was a lot of fun
Oh
learning
my
how to
gosh,
take
I
care of
did
the
that
horse.
too.
It
Ah,
was so much fun. We had now
it's
before
great.
him, we never been on a ranch or anything like that, but what I didn't realize until I was an adult, that actually was equine assistant therapy, working with horses. And when I told my mom about that, she was like, wow, didn't even know that we were going through that process. But he was so gentle with me, knowing because my mom told him about what happened. But he was like, you want to learn how to ride a horse. So all these different things. We were in trail rides. We were in the Rose Parade that
Oh,
happened
very
once a
cool.
year. Me and my youngest sister and his daughter. So, and got to meet his side of the family. I met my best friend. We've known each other since 10 years old. We're still friends to this very day.
Oh,
So his family was our family and we're still in contact with them. So you never know how things are going to go, but my mom was open to having that experience. We were able to do different things, even a movie night, different things like that. It doesn't have to be anything extravagant.
right.
Even talking about him. There were times that when we talked about him, I would feel sad, but at the same time, I would start laughing because of some of the silly things that he did or said.
Right.
Now for me, now Christmas was very rough for me. I would always put on a face and act like everything was fine because 2 weeks before he died. So
Right.
growing, even though, I got presents and everything, I got to see my uncle who was his brother over the years, and he would come and visit us. it was still, there was still an emptiness there, but I pretended like everything was okay.
Mm.
And then when I became an adult, when it came to Christmas, if I didn't go home, I mean, there were times where I was actually deployed during Christmas, which was fine
Oh.
with me because, some years are better than others. And it wasn't until I started after the therapy and then, writing these books, got a little bit better with Christmas. Actually, and Christmas was his favorite holiday.
Oh.
So my mom was like, that Christmas was his favorite holiday. I said, I know. Still wasn't feeling it. So the last couple of years, I've been feeling a lot better about Christmas. And this year, I actually decorated a little bit. So,
Oh,
so those baby steps there.
well, that's great encouragement for people because
Mhm.
I think sometimes when huge trauma like that happens, huge loss, we experience huge loss, there's that part that says like that it's never going to be the same, but there's also the other piece about it's never going to be okay again.
Right.
Or
And
it's
that's
never,
okay.
or I'm never going to be able to enjoy XYZ again. Or,
And those are
you
those
know,
feelings where you got to be okay. In that moment, you're feeling that way.
yeah,
That's okay if you're feeling that way because your emotions are raw. And for the longest time, I didn't think I was going to be able to celebrate Christmas with great excitement. And even though I felt that way, I didn't. Now, for me, I didn't want others to feel that way. So
right.
I was like, this is me. I'm gonna deal with it when I'm around people. Um, I'll put on a face. And then also another thing for adults, if you don't want to celebrate, that's okay. If you want to stay at home and watch movies and that's all you want to do, that's okay. Now with a child, you're going to have to learn how to pivot a little bit because you want them to be able to, you maybe even if it's celebrating a little bit,
Yeah.
to figure out some little things that you like to do, and even if it's things that you did with that person,
Mm,
try to create new memories with that, like I with the last book, Let's Celebrate.
right.
um with the little girl trying to, she doesn't want to do the ballet recital because her dad normally records it.
Yes.
She doesn't want to celebrate a birthday because it's the first birthday without him. So with the family coming in and validating those feelings, I get it. You're mad, you're confused, and that's okay. But you know what, why don't we create some new memories with that? I
Oh,
think dad would like that. What do you think? And even if they still didn't want to celebrate, well, let's do something else. So it's that thing of knowing that there are options, even if you're not really ready to, you're in a space of celebrating, maybe do something minor,
yeah.
something that's
Yeah.
small. Even if it just means, you know what, if you're ready, let's talk about your dad. Let's talk
Mm.
about your grandparent, or even a pet. Because some people's like, well, pet. No, this is, hey, those emotions are still raw, even with the pet.
They
You know,
are. Yes, I
yeah.
remember we had to do a funeral for my son's hamster when,
Hmm.
and they're part of the family. And I mean, obviously not
Exactly.
like a parent, obviously not, but
Right.
they're same those on a smaller scale, there are still those same emotions. And so what do you say to somebody who's like, kids are resilient. They're fine.
They are. But my question to you is, what have you done to help them to a point of resilience? What have you helped them to get to a point of being able to regulate their emotions during this process? Because there are stages in life, there are different milestones where those emotions are going to come up. When you're
Mhm.
looking at birthdays, when you're looking at holidays, when you're looking at graduations, when you're looking at starting the workforce, or like me, I joined the military, went to college, whether if you get married, have kids, all those different milestones, there'll be that lingering thought, man, I wish he was here.
Yeah,
When I graduated from high school, my family was there and I was happy about that, but still, man, I wish my dad was here. I wish I can give
right.
him a hug. When I went to college, same way.
Yeah.
Those father and daughter conversations that I wish I had with him growing up about boys. And even though my mom did it, it was still wanting to have go from him, father daughter dances, father coming up to the school, all these different things that I saw with the other girls. And
Yeah.
it was like, I don't have that. I did have it and now it's gone, and it's not fair because it was only 9 years that I
Right.
had it. So, with those things, and then also avoid saying, oh, you got to be strong.
Oh,
No, if you want to cry, guess what?
Go
It's
ahead.
okay. It's okay. It's not a girl thing, a boy thing. Hey, look, you are missing this person. And I look at it as grief is a sign of love
Mm,
because
true,
if
true.
you didn't miss them, if you didn't love them, you wouldn't miss them, right?
That's right. You wouldn't
You
care.
know, you wouldn't care. It
Yeah.
wouldn't, you wouldn't be feeling these emotions, because we hear about different people dying. And even though we have sympathy, it's like, oh, that's sad. But when it hits home, that's when it hurts a
When there's
lot.
an
So
attachment there.
exactly.
Yeah.
And and my mom, she wanted to, take that away from me, but it wasn't her place to take it away because I miss my dad, you
Yeah,
know.
for
And
sure.
and then one point I remember we had a conversation. She said, sometimes I felt like I wasn't enough. And I told her, I said, it wasn't that you weren't enough, it's just that I wanted you both here.
Yeah. And I think
And
that was important for her to hear, I think, that
mhm.
you were able to express that
And
as
I
an
couldn't as a
adult.
kid. I couldn't
No,
do it as a
no,
kid.
and you
Yeah,
wouldn't.
yeah,
You
yeah.
wouldn't. But oh, so this kind of dovetails into what I was going to ask you. Like, so I mean, obviously, you had some therapy, some group sessions, you've worked through, you've written the book, all the things. And so I'm thinking that that's sort of got you to that point where you were able to go back and tell your mom that and give her some reassurance like that. So,
Yeah.
and being as you're working in social work, so what do you see then, or do you see, kids that don't have that support, versus kids that do when they have
So,
some sort of a loss? And then what's the difference for them moving forward?
I'm no longer a social worker, but I did
Okay.
when I was a social worker, I worked with veterans at the VA.
Oh,
So
okay.
my experience with kids was during the time that I was working at the grief support center.
Okay, so let's take it
Yeah,
from there then. So same
yeah.
thing. Like if you saw kids like at the support center, but then maybe you saw kids that started and didn't finish, or maybe kids that you knew of that should have come that didn't. What's the difference in the way
So
that they can deal with that moving forward?
So when it comes to kids that come, because the kids that come, I see them at different stages. There's a point where they come in, they're glad to be around their friends, especially with other kids that are dealing with the same type of grief. But then there are times they'll come in, they don't say anything to anybody. They sit there. We start with reading a book about grief. I ask questions. Sometimes they respond, sometimes they don't. The activities we do, even the kids that are quiet, they'll do the activity quietly and we let them have that space. It's okay. And then sometimes the other kids might want to interject and then I was like, well, no, that's okay if they don't want to talk. It's okay. And sometimes they may join later on and sometimes they may not. And then we may hear later on that the parent talks about that they had a rough day. So whether I think it's beneficial if a child does attend, but even if they don't have a place where they can go to a support center, I think it's very important for at least the parent to uh, get that support. Yeah, and there are some times where the parent they don't have anyone else.
Yeah.
So the online support group that I go to help those adults that don't have those type of centers in their area, or maybe if they can go to their church if they belong to a church and talk to somebody.
So you do an
Um,
online one for parents then?
Actually, for parents, for those that lost a parent, that lost a spouse, that lost a
Okay.
child. So the group that the organization that I work with, volunteer for, they have different groups for those different adults that are dealing with different types of grief.
Awesome.
So I work with them and basically they're processing. There are people that either had a loved one that recently died
Mm.
or it may be 15, 20 years ago and they're
Oh,
still dealing with it. So and that's why I say that it comes in waves. My grandmother passed a few years ago. My mom was dealing with not only with that but also my dad's death came back up, her brothers, her fathers. So a lot of that, there are some times where you've dealt with a death and maybe other deaths that happened before, you're reliving all of that together.
mm.
And that's not easy. Or even if it's a friend,
Yeah.
so and you never know when it comes up, right? Because
No.
sometimes you like I said, you may be walking in the grocery store and a song comes on and it may be that person's favorite song and all
Yeah.
of a sudden you're in a moment there. Um,
Yeah,
it just
those things are powerful, right?
very,
Smells and sounds and
hmm
situations and those little flashbacks, those can
absolutely.
be really powerful. So
And
what would
oh,
you say to like what signs should parents or caregivers look for, like maybe teachers and things as well too, look for in a child who is still struggling, who's not, maybe they're not processing this very well.
so we already know they're not going to be the same. We
Right.
know that already, right? That
Yeah.
that there's going to be some change in personality. There's going to be
Right.
some changes there. Um, some kids, it's obvious because they may lash out by yelling. They may misbehave. Things that they typically wouldn't do, they may start doing, right. So paying
Right.
attention to that. Then they may not want to they may not want to do schoolwork. They may
Mhm.
not want to go to school. They may want to be standoffish when at one point that they may have been really outgoing. Now they don't really want to deal with people. Um, Even though there are some obvious signs, I would also pay attention to where the child seems like everything is normal.
Oh, okay.
Because sometimes it seems like things are normal, but they're trying to do that just to not think about it. And sometimes I don't want to talk about it. Okay. But if you see a behavior that's out of place, you may have to sit with them until they're able to get it out.
Right.
I say that there are obvious signs and there are signs where it seems like everything's fine. And that's why I say go ahead and, continue to do a pulse check.
Wow.
Even going into teenage years and adulthood, I know every year when this time comes around for me, my mom and sister, they call me, they text me, hey, how are you doing?
Right.
I know it's that time of year and everything. Um, hey, we're here. Even if I don't really feel like talking, they let me know. And this is even for friends as well. If you have a friend that is going through it, and I also want to say, do not say you should move on.
Oh,
Get
yes.
that out of your vocabulary. There is no
Right.
such thing as moving on. There is a such thing as moving forward.
Yes. Okay. I
Move
totally agree
forward.
with you on that. There's
Yeah.
entirely different for sure.
Exactly. So,
Yeah.
it was, you have, because I've had adults that I work with, well, I had a family member say, well, it's been 5 years. Aren't you over it yet? You should be moving on.
The people that say that probably haven't suffered a loss.
Or if they have, they haven't dealt with that loss.
True.
Because sometimes people are like, well, you know what? That's just how it is. Death happens. Just keep it moving. But when you don't deal with it, it comes out in other ways. It comes out in how you respond to people. Something that you maybe wouldn't necessarily be get agitation with, and then all of a sudden you're lashing out at something that you wouldn't normally be upset about.
Right.
So and sometimes people don't realize that until later on. They're like, oh, wait a minute, that really was, it wasn't that big of a deal, but something else was for you to go that route. So
Right.
when I hear people say that, no, it's not about moving on, it's about moving forward. And sometimes it's very, very, very small baby steps to
Yeah.
where, like I said, just getting out of bed.
Yep. That's true. Right. And so
Sometimes that's all you can do. And then also when it comes to kids,
Mhm.
um, do not use phrases like they went to sleep because it brings confusion.
Right. You need to tell them the truth. If they're asking, you need to tell
Yes,
them the truth.
you
I
need to be
totally believe
honest.
that
Yeah,
because you're right. I mean, that would be so confusing for a child.
yeah. They're
Yeah.
sleeping. Well, why don't they wake up?
Exactly. Where are they? Where are they? How's
Yeah.
they be in their bed? Like, where are they? Where are they
And
now?
then also be
Yeah.
mindful of the phrase passed on
Okay.
because unless you explain it, I wouldn't use it
Yeah. Kids are
because,
very
yeah.
black and white, right? Like, they're not,
Yeah.
there's not a whole lot of gray area with a child.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
just be upfront and honest. And like I said, age appropriate, of course, but also explain what happened. Yes, it's hurtful to talk about, but you need to tell them what happened,
Yeah.
but in a way that if you feel like you may not need to give all the details.
Right. I
Like
mean, it
my
may
mom
be
had,
a horrific accident or something, and you don't want to say that, obviously,
right.
but you do need to
Um,
let them know that they are no longer here. They have died, and
yeah.
we're going to help you through that.
And if they ask what happened, like for me, my mom told me it was a car accident. But
Mm.
did she go into details? Not
No.
right then.
No, no, because
So
you were
yeah.
9.
And I didn't, and it was one of those things where it was as later on we talked about it. And if I came back around and wanted to know, then that was the case. But it
Right.
wasn't to, that's why you let the child lead, and
Yes.
they may ask questions. And even though you may not be comfortable talking about it, it's going to be on the child's mind.
Right. And
So,
I would
and
just
if,
say
yeah.
probably that whoever you're talking to about whoever has suffered the loss, whether it's a child or an adult, we should let them lead. Yes?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Because, and then that's when it comes back to being able to validate that child's feeling.
Hmm.
And it's rough, especially when you're going through grief too. But if they're asking you questions and you may not be in the mood to answer them, even if you got to bring in somebody to help you, if you got to bring
Yeah.
in, if you're a member of a church, bring in a pastor or somebody to help you, or the counselor, go to counseling and
Right.
let the counselor help you to be able to articulate to that child, or even help the child to articulate at times, because sometimes they don't know what they're feeling. Because what's wrong? What's wrong? Well, I don't know.
Right.
Sometimes I don't know is not necessarily because they're trying to get out of talking. They may not
They
really
just don't.
know how they're feeling,
Well, and
at that
and to
time.
your point, I mean, the parent may not actually know how to explain things well to the child. So I I would say, not having any psychology degree or anything, obviously, but I would just sort of tag on to what you said. And then if the parent doesn't know, it's okay to tell the child, I don't really know how to answer this right now, but let me find someone who can help us with this. And
Exactly.
then
And
we'll all
that's
sit
the
down
best part.
together and they can help us because I want to understand as much as you.
Hmm.
And rather than saying, okay, I just don't want to talk about that. I'm not talking about that.
Yes, that's the best way to
You
handle
know,
that, because you're not gonna have all the answers. You're not.
no, you
Um,
can't.
you know, exactly.
We'd
So
like to
it's
as
not,
parents, right? We would love to
yeah,
have all the
love
answers
to
for
do, yes,
everything under the sun, but no.
but we do not. And that's the other reason why I wrote this series, because if there's an issue with trying to talk about it, why not talk about it with a story? and,
Yeah.
and I truly believe storytelling and even being creative can help bring out that conversation. Because if even if you can't really talk about it directly, well, let's talk about this family that's going through it. And
Hmm.
then maybe ask the child, well, do you feel sometimes the same way that Jasmine does?
Right.
And kind of bring it in that way. And then if the child's like, well, yeah, sometimes I do feel like her, that can help foster that conversation that adult may not be ready to have.
Yeah. No, stories are very powerful. They do sort of bring down the guard
Hmm.
because it's not a direct question to them. It's a what do you think? Or can you relate to this?
Exactly.
Or oh, maybe that looks a little bit like what you were telling me. And
Hmm.
I totally agree. I worked in special needs for many years, and stories are very powerful for children in bringing teaching and bringing clarity and bringing like a whole bunch of things for them, right? So
And even creative
that's why I loved your
activities.
series so much, is because I
Mhm.
think it can be a really great tool for in a lot of ways.
And also with being creative, like the activity coloring book that I created as well. Um, it it has, of course, a word search in there. It has a maze, but it also has pages for coloring, because coloring can soothe even adults at times.
Well, there's
But
adult
also
coloring books now. There was no adult coloring
exactly.
books when I was a kid. Was there when you were a kid? Like I never
No, I
saw
don't
them.
remember hearing. If
I
they
don't
did,
remember.
I didn't see them.
Right?
But to be able to have that to help, and then even there's activities in there. I have like creating a memory jar, to have a
Oh,
jar where you can write down your favorite memory of that person or anything that you feel like, and put it in that jar, and maybe one day take them out and start reading. There's a space in there for journaling. There's also biblical scriptures that talks about grief and loss. So, even when parents don't have the words or maybe can't do that, but you know what? Here's an activity coloring book that maybe we can share together. Or maybe, and I know we're in a technology age, creating a scrapbook, creating a photo album. And yes, we can do it on the computer, but
it's
sitting down in the
not the
middle of the
same.
floor and having some construction paper, printing out the photos, cutting them out in shapes, different things like that. And then while you're doing that, maybe have some popcorn and sharing a story or two
Exactly.
about what happened in that
Exactly.
picture and everything. So kind of taking it back old school, but
But that whole tactile, that whole hands-on
Hmm.
is very therapeutic, right?
Yes.
It's very sort of rhythmic as you're cutting and pasting or snipping out or folding or whatever it is you're making, right? It's very
Hmm.
kind of rhythmic and therapeutic. It's like a safe space to be because you can have that conversation while you're not looking at the person too,
Exactly.
right?
And you
Like you
know
don't
what?
have.
Sometimes we tend to talk a little bit more when we're doing stuff,
Yes, we can kind
especially
of
with
get
kids.
going and yeah, that
Hmm.
you can kind of get them going a little bit or yourself even. You might
Yeah.
surprise yourself as well too. So I love that. I love that. So what's one thing that, people would be surprised to learn about you?
Hmm. Well, one thing I know a lot of people like she used to ride horses. Those that know me didn't know, probably didn't know that. Well, when I was in high school, actually even in junior high, I wanted to be an architect.
Oh,
And I actually, my mom bought Architectural Digest for me as a kid. And I would always go through because I was always still fascinated with the design of buildings and everything. And in high school, I actually took drafting classes.
hmm.
I took manufacturing, graphics, construction, and research and development. And my senior year, we were supposed to come up with a project the summer before on what we were going to do. So I decided I wanted to design an underground house built in Colorado. So
Oh.
I did the plans, took it to competition, and I won first and best in it's regional and state.
Oh, wow, that's amazing. Okay,
Yeah.
now I got to ask, as an adult, did you ever go and build that house?
No, but I still have the floor plans to this day.
Okay, if you
I
ever
still
build
have
that,
them.
we're gonna do another podcast.
Okay. You know what? That's a great idea. I may go back and play around with it and everything. But yeah, I it was
Build
so
your
funny
dream
because
home. I think that's
you know
amazing.
what? That would be pretty cool. It was something I wanted to do outside the box because I said I didn't want to build a traditional house. And
Yeah.
so when there was libraries, when people actually went to the libraries to get
Right? The
books.
Dewey Decimal System, we looked up
Yes,
stuff with numbers.
exactly.
We had the little
So
cards you stamped. It was such a pain.
yeah, so I went there and I researched and I was like, oh, these different houses. And I was like, ooh, here's a house that's interesting. It's a greenhouse. And then because I added a greenhouse to the house that I designed and
Okay.
everything. So it was cool also because I was the only girl in the class
Mm.
during those classes. And I earned the respect of the guys because they initially felt like I did not deserve to be in there because I was a girl. But my teacher, Mr. Nick Bledsoe, I will never forget him because number one, he looked like Kenny Rogers to me. I would ask for his autograph. But secondly, he did not treat me any differently from the guys. He was like, she's in here. He mentored me. I got to see how a house was built from the foundation up with the rest of the students. So
Right.
the other guys came around, but it was actually pretty awesome. And even though I did not go that route, I still have a fascination with buildings and how they look and how they were built.
Well, I'm not surprised actually when you say that because we also connect on the nutrition front, right? And we always talk about
Yes,
building the foundation. Well, you started way back when building foundations, and then you
yes,
were laying with all of that you went through in you were laying foundations there. And then now
yeah.
you're helping others to build a stronger foundation to get through the grief. Like foundation seems to be like
Throughout my
part
life,
of
yeah.
you, right? Like you just keep
Yes, yes.
like we're gonna keep laying them and then building upon them and keep moving to the next one and building upon them. So I love that. Congratulations, because you're just like a
Thank
front
you.
runner here in all of these areas. That's amazing.
Thank
Okay.
you.
So with your characters, Jasmine and Bella,
Hmm.
if they could talk, what piece of advice would they give to kids?
That's a good question. I would say with Jasmine, I think she would say that it takes time
Mm.
and um, it's okay to feel moments of joy,
Hmm.
moments of sadness,
Yeah.
moments of confusion, and lean on your family.
Oh, that's nice. That's
Now,
beautiful.
for Bella, and just for those that don't know, I have an old English bulldog named Bella, so I decided to put her in the story.
Okay.
So we're gonna go from there. Bella would ask, "Where's my treats?"
Seems like Bella should connect with my palm because they're all on the same page there with that.
Where's my treats? Even though she would snuggle up and everything at
Yep.
times, but she will ask, "Where's my treats?"
That's
And
so
I'm ready
cute.
to lay down. So,
Oh my goodness. That's so. So what's your favorite part about this whole about engaging with children and families with all that you do? Because you're out there everywhere, right? You're at book fairs and
mhm.
stores and you take it to schools and all the things, right? So
Well,
what's your favorite part?
I haven't done the schools yet, which I'm hoping to do. I would say my inner is sharing my story and listening to theirs, because a lot of times I like this past Saturday I was at a book fair in Dallas and hearing people that talk about their grief and letting them know that, you know what, I get it. I get it. And even though it may not be the same type of grief, but getting the emotional part of it and to be able to find the words to help turn, like me turning my pain into purpose. I never thought that years ago, if you told me I would write a book about grief or write a book, period, or let alone about grief, I would say, no, I think you're wrong, because I wouldn't do that. But to be able to interact with people, whether they are children, whether they're adults, and having that feeling of, you know what, I'm not alone and you're not alone either.
Oh,
And even if it's for that small moment in time where that person got to share their story with me, and even if maybe they weren't able to share with anybody else that would understand, that they felt comfortable enough to share with me, I take that as a badge of honor,
yeah,
because
that's
they
high
didn't have to
praise.
talk to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really that's a shows a huge level of trust for sure. For sure.
Yes, because
Yeah.
I know it's not easy to talk about at
Hmm.
all, whether
Yeah.
you're a child or an adult, to talk about the pain that you feel, because usually, and we look at it as a society where we know it's a part of life, and we deal with it, but we don't deal with the emotions for the most part.
Yeah.
And looking over this past year, where you've had the school shootings, where in
Mhm.
Texas we had that big flood in July,
Oh,
that there were children that died. So children are dealing with this, whether we want to talk about it or not. And I think it's better that we equipped ourselves with resources to help talk with children. And to be able to talk to others. I mean, not everybody's going to get it, and that's okay too,
yep.
because some people just don't get it. But if you can find a community or find someone that you can talk to be able to process those emotions, and they're going to, and processing at different stages of life. So you got,
Yeah.
if it's a child that's young, in the adolescence, into young adulthood, into just adulthood and older, you're going to deal with that at different places. And if there's someone else that passes away, guess what, 9 times out of 10 you're going to go right back to that. Because when my uncle died, that was my dad's only brother,
Mm.
went back to it. And even at his funeral, my mom saw me sitting there, and I was in my dress army uniform, because he was in the army too. Um, she told me, when she sat next to me, when she looked at me, she saw 9-year-old me.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm in my 30s at that point, and she said she saw the way I was sitting and everything. She saw the 9-year-old me and everything. So I felt that it was, with this series, very important. And even with the first book, because the last image I wanted to see of my dad was in a casket. So
Absolutely. Yeah.
in the first book, I didn't want to talk about that. I briefly mentioned it, but for this family, they went a different route. They found a more creative way of memorializing their loved one, which was the reef ball, which I
Yeah.
found out
I never
about
even heard
five.
of that before, but it's a wonderful,
It's
lovely idea.
so it's so amazing, because some people spread ashes, some people build trees, some people build plant roses, or and everything. But this particular uh thing is that, and as this is a smaller replica of it, because it's huge in
Oh
person.
my goodness.
And what it is that this organization, Eternal Reefs, found an eco-friendly way to help the coral reefs that are dying. So what
Oh.
they did was for families to bring their loved ones cremated ashes, and typically they mix it with an eco-friendly concrete, and they mix it and put it in the top. And you can put like seashells in it. You can put little trinkets or ribbons in it, and it's a 4-day process. They let it dry. So then after that day, after the first day, and I mean, even the kids can put like handprints in it, like a creative activity. The
Right.
second day, they let it dry. The third day, they have a memorial service. And the fourth day, all the families get on a ship and they go out to where the coral reef is and they look and see another ship where they have all the reef balls on because like I said they're so huge and heavy they need a crane to pick it up and put it in
Wow.
the water. So they call out the family's name, the family goes to the bow of the ship and they watch as the crane goes into the water. And so it's
Wow.
like them saying their final goodbye. And
Right.
if they ever want to go back and dive and get back to the area, the organization actually give them coordinates so they can go back and see
Oh,
how much is grown. So you have, not only you're memorializing your loved one, you're creating a new home for sea animals and helping the coral reefs as
I
well.
love
So it's
that.
like so all of that together, and I thought that was so cool. So when I fast forward 5 6 years later and I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to put this book together and I was like what was that thing what was that thing that I saw on TV
Great.
and I googled it and I found the organization, reached out to the CEO, I asked that, hey, do you mind if I put this in a book? They were great. They were fine with. I interviewed them. They sent me the videos, and I actually got an opportunity to go in 2021 to Galveston because they have places along the coast,
Hmm.
even though their organization is primarily in Sarasota. So Galveston, Texas, they had a place where they invited me to come out, and I got to see the process. I got to talk to family, to talk
Oh,
about their family and everything. Got to get on the ship with them, and I got to see the whole process. And I thought that was it was amazing. It was so awesome to see another creative way of remembering your loved one, and you're helping the environment too.
yeah. No, I did. I thought that was really a very creative way. I had not heard about it before, but another way that gives families a way to remember
Hmm.
that's kind of gonna carry on, into
Yeah.
the future. So I love that. So where can people find all of your books? Where can they get your books?
Well, they're on Amazon, but
Okay.
also if they want to get the books directly from me, I can autograph them. They can go to tashay-mason.com/books. And if you are a school and would like for me to come visit, you can reach out to me. My email address is tashay@tashay-mason.com. And we'll love to come speak, whether it's at school, if it's at a conference. Or if you just want to do a one-on-one and talk, I also do a little bit of grief coaching as well. So I am available.
Awesome. Okay. Well, we'll put your website and all of that in the show notes for people for sure. And it's been a pleasure talking to you today. Thank you for coming on the show and taking the time.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
All right. You have a great day.
You too.